All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a viewfinder and how to use a viewfinder so that you can use it if you are looking at photographs from a magazine. It is one way to find a really interesting composition in an existing photograph. So our canvases are two sizes. They're either 8 by 10 or they're 5 by 7. And the way that you make a viewfinder is that you try to divide the measurement of your canvas or of your paper, whatever you happen to be using, by a number that is common to both of those. So for example, because 2 is common to 8 and 2 is common to 5, then my piece of paper would end up being 4 by 5 because 2 goes into 8 4 times and 2 goes into 10 5 times. So I could actually cut pieces of paper 4 by 5, and those would be my viewfinders. So for example, this piece of paper right here, it's my viewfinder. It is 4 by 5, okay? If it is a smaller one, my 5 by 7, there is no whole number that will go into 5 and into 7 except for 1, which brings you back to 5 by 7. So you could say, you could divide it by a half, and if you were to divide it by half, you would end up with half of 5 is 2.5 and half of 7 is 3.5. So if I looked at the canvas, which is right here, that is 5 by 7, and I did do that math, then you can see where it is. It would be this big right here, okay? And I know it's correct because 3 more of those make the rest of the canvas. So the bottom line is that the viewfinder needs to be in proportion to the image that you're working on. So if you're working with an image that is really tall like this, and you're trying to draw it into a rectangle like this, then of course you're going to distort the image. Whatever shape this is, then your canvas, even if it's smaller, has to be in that basic shape as well. And that's why you do a little bit of math in order to get the size of the viewfinder. And then once you have decided, you've done your math and you've decided how big the viewfinder is, this is the outside of your paper. Let's say this is your viewfinder right there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a ruler and you're going to go from side to side and you're going to make an X. And you're going to go from side to side and you're going to make an X. Helps if it's lined up. And then once you do that, now you can decide how big you want the hole to be cut out, how big you want this to be. And the way that we do that is you can start on any side. You can start on the top, the bottom, or the side. So I'm just going to start on the top. And I'm going to make the straightest line I possibly can going from one side to the other. How this works, I don't know, but this works. This side, this side, this side, and this side are not going to end up being equal, but this little device, this little set of rules that you use for this, ends up allowing for the inside that you cut out to be in proportion to the outside. And of course, the outside is in proportion to your painting. So my lines aren't that straight, and that's why it's not coming out perfect. This one probably is a little bit better. Okay, so for this piece of paper, I could have this side. So I would take my X-Acto and I would cut it out, and that would give me a window like this right here. And then I could make another one, maybe one that's a little bit smaller. So let's say I took my ruler and I did something like this. On another piece of paper, I would have one that was a little bit smaller than that. So once you have your viewfinders, then what you're going to do is you're going to go on to, and this is what we would have done if we were in class, and this would take a while. Usually it takes at least a class period, if not 2 class periods, for kids to find an image that they really like. So I'm just going to put my viewfinder on a couple of images, and I'll tell you what works about them or what doesn't work about them. So like I said in the last video, you can definitely do something that is more realistic. Like that is a beautiful composition right there. So if I wanted to do a landscape type of thing, I could do that. I could also do something like that. Okay. So I just found a few of them and I'll go through. This is the one that I showed you that I would have done because I thought there was a whole bunch of really interesting kind of modern looking types of compositions within this one. Normally when we do this, I ask kids not to do something that is based on one color. So not to have it be all browns or all blues or all greens, because usually we do them at least 16 by 20, if not a little bit larger. And I have found in the past that if you were to only stick with one color, kids get really bored of that color. And usually this is our longest painting, so probably 4 weeks in class to do it. But because you're doing it at home and they're going to be so much smaller, if you wanted to do something like this with all browns, then you're welcome to do it. I thought that was, a couple of them were really kind of cool. I thought this, having a little bit more of the camera was really cool as well. This one I thought was kind of interesting. It's a little bit dull in color, but if you like that subtlety, I thought that was a really interesting composition. I thought this one was kind of cool. I also like that as well. If you feel as though you're not quite so advanced as maybe some of those in painting, you can choose something that has brighter colors. So I thought this was, I'm trying to think where I liked it the most. And this is exactly what you would do. I always, if you were in class, I would say you're going to kind of push the viewfinder around almost like it is like a Ouija board, the little triangular type thing. So that's kind of cool with the laces and the spheres. I think that might be more interesting than this one because the inside of the shoe isn't as interesting as the other parts. So that one's a little bit easier than the other ones that I've shown you. And then if you wanted something to be a little bit easier than that, there are plenty of ads on the internet and in magazines that are actually somebody else's artwork that they did. And there's all different types of cool, colorful that's kind of interesting compositions within these as well. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. So the goal is, you know, you want to challenge yourself, but you also want to get it done before the end of the year. And I know most of you fairly well, so I know if you're challenging yourself or if you are kind of taking it a little bit too easy. And then once, of course, you have your viewfinder, I just got to reach to get my, my painting. Then what you're going to do is, and you can see it on mine, you can see that I've made an X. You can see my pencil line that is still there. This one I've erased a little bit, but you can see it over here. So I made an X on my canvas, and I also made an X on my viewfinder. So I put a little line here, and I put a little line here, and I put a little line here, and put a little line here. And then I literally myself took pieces of paper so that I only would see 1/4 of it at a time, and I would draw that fourth. And then when I was done with that fourth, I would take another piece of paper and I would draw that part of it, so that I'm graphing it so that it's as accurate as possible. The drawing is as accurate as possible when I put it onto the canvas. And then from there, like I said in the last video, you're going to use a color. Normally we use burnt sienna, but it will depend how much burnt sienna you have left at this point or how much you're going to have to use within your painting. So choose a color that you have more of at this particular point in time, and you're going to use it in lights, mediums, and darks. And you can see where I did have to go in with some of my white because I had painted in a little bit too much of the burnt sienna in some places. You know, a master artist wouldn't have to do that. They would have done it right the first time. But I am not a Renaissance master artist, so I still am having to correct some of the things that I was doing. And then from here, I'll start adding color. And as I add color, I'll either take photographs or I'll do a video to talk about where I'm at so far. and adding the color. Okay, so most of you, a lot of you have contacted me this week. You're telling me about your painting based on an artist. You're working on that. You're finishing up with your abstract painting, and then you're going to do this one. There's not going to be a final exam, which is awesome. So we have until the end of the school year to do these 3 paintings. But you need to stay in contact with me. I don't want any surprises at the end where somebody is in danger of not gaining credit for the class at the very end. Okay, so you can email me. If you want to Zoom, you can email me and ask for a Zoom meeting. You can send me photos, however you want to do it, so that we stay in touch and I make sure that everybody's going to pass for the semester and for the for the semester, for the quarter, and then for the semester. Okay?